Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and I sincerely hope that everyone had a great Thanksgiving last week. I certainly did, and it was nice to have a few days off. But with that being said, it's time to get going again. So let's welcome my co-host to the show. First up is the Nightmare Nephew himself, the one and only Josh Briley. Josh, how you doing this morning?
Awesome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How was your Thanksgiving?
Man, it was pretty good. Wasn't long enough, you know what I mean? I feel like I got shortchanged on the leftover end of it, but I'll save that for P3 Radio.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, folks, make sure you check out P3 Radio. You can hear all about Thanksgiving. I know last week you had told us that you were going to be taking the Thanksgiving tour. You had about 3 spots you were going to hit. So I'll be interested to hear how the food turned out on the other side of that. But as many of you may know, and some of you may not, our buddy Richard Mulligan, he had a rough week last week as his stepdad was having a major surgery at the beginning of the week. Luckily, that went well, and so things are great on that front. But he also had some other stuff going on. So Richard's not going to be here with us this week. However, in his place, we have the man who has officially become the pinch hitter of the Retro Wrestling Review, it seems. Brian Trammell's here. BT, how are you doing, sir?
What's up? Homeboy BT. I changed my gimmick. Come on now.
Oh
you got to go with
Homeboy BT.
How's Brother Josh and Brother Gene doing? Y'all doing good?
Awesome, man. How you doing, homeboy?
I'm doing
chilling,
fantastic.
I'm
I'm still full from Thanksgiving. We had just me and the wife, and just great. She outdid herself. I actually messaged Gene and said, man, we did so good on the second wife. Gene and I both have the second wife has been the superstar, and both our meals. I know mine was just, I'm still eating leftovers. So,
oh yeah, same here. My father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and his wife came, and she fixed a big meal. And yeah, Rosie always brings it on the holidays. And well, she's a hell of a cook anytime, but she really goes above and beyond on the holidays. So yeah, we had a great meal that, like you said, BT, we're still eating leftovers today. And this is Sunday for those who are hearing this on Wednesday. But before we get going on this week's show, I have a bit of surprise for you guys. We actually do have a cameo here from Richard Lee, as Josh refers to him, not to be confused with Moondog manager Richard Lee. Some people get excited, go, they've been looking for him. Well, we still haven't found him. We're not even there for sure if Richard Lee is still with us. But our Richard Lee, and when I say we got a cameo from him, I don't mean we had to pay him $200 for this little video clip selfie video here. But we do have a word from Richard. So right now, let's go to our fellow co-host and Josh's hetero life partner, as they say, Richard Mulligan.
Hey guys, just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Sorry I'm not there this week. A lot of craziness has been going on in my family. My stepdad had his surgery, and it was a success. Thanks for all of you guys for praying for me and praying for my stepdad more importantly than me. My aunt did pass away this week, so I am at a funeral this week. Want to say thanks for everybody for checking in with me. But yeah, guys, one big thing I do want to talk about is I gave Josh Briley a lot of grief. Brother Josh, my best friend, and calling him an asshole a couple of weeks back because he didn't tell me that there was some superstar figures that were available. My best friend totally redeemed himself this past week. He called me on Black Friday morning, held 3 superstar figures for me at Walmart, guys. This is one of the coolest things anybody's ever done for me. One of the nicest things. I once had a doctor save my life with back surgery, and that's now like 8th compared to Josh's kindness in this event. I'd like to say thank you to him for that. He is a sweetheart. I will be back next week, Lord willing. The creek don't rise, as my grandmother used to say, you know. Well, the creek don't rise. Don't let BT do that imitation, by the way. That's gimmick infringement. But, guys, love you guys. Just wanted to shout out Josh here for that. And I will be back next week and just wanted to say thanks. Thanks again.
You know, I'll never do that imitation ever.
Oh,
ever.
my goodness.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
So, Josh, people may not realize you just dropped off the screen there for a moment. Richard just put you over clean in the middle of the ring, as they say in wrestling, and he just put you over huge, and I don't think you heard it.
I didn't hear one word of it, man. As soon as you started playing that video clip, my browser just said not supported or some shit, and it literally black screened. I had to leave the studio and come back. I guess I'll watch the replay. Thanks, Richard. Whatever you did, man. I 110% did whatever you say I did.
Well, good thing we weren't swerving it. It wasn't like he just told a story of you like raping his dog or something, and then you just said, 110% did what you said. I'm waiting for BT to have something to say about the quality of that video that we just saw. It was
no, I'm not saying I'm putting
sketchy,
Richard over. He did a fantastic job with that. So yeah.
Well, can you give Josh a synopsis of what he put him over for?
Something about figures that you hollered at him when you was at Walmart so that he could come get 3 figures. So
apparently Josh cannot hear Richard saying good things about him. He disappeared.
And then he said, "You sure can suck up."
Now,
hey,
what's crazy?
Still hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I got technical difficulties.
That's fine. So before we get to this week's USWA episode, I do want to say thank you to everyone who is following our Facebook page over the holiday weekend. We have hit 9,000 followers on that Facebook page, which is just incredible. Thank you all so much. Our Patreon's growing a little slower than our Facebook page, but we do appreciate all of our patrons, both the free members and the paid members. In fact, I want to read a message that I got from one of our patrons this week. We've been meaning to shout him out anyway, Josh, and I feel like this is as good a time as any. This patron is from Germany. So how cool is that? I frequently hear from listeners in other countries who enjoy the show, and I'm always thrilled and fascinated by that. It's just fun to think that somebody in Germany is interested in old Memphis wrestling, and more so they're interested in hearing all of us talk about old Memphis wrestling. So that's really cool. But we have a friend named Ralph. I'm not going to slaughter his last name by trying to say it. Plus, he may not want it put out here. So we're just going to mention that his name is Ralph, and he may not want people associating him directly with our foolishness. But so here's the message I received from Ralph. It says, "Hey, Gene, since Jerry Lawler's enthusiasm for softball and his relative disinterest in his job of drawing a full house as possible on Monday nights has become a recurring theme for your show, I want to share with you guys a little discovery. I think the guys and yourself will find this amusing. It's a passage from Jerry Jarrett's autobiography, The Best of Times, which is worth reading, by the way, and especially in regards to Jarrett's entry into the wrestling business as in his taking over the territory from Nick Goulas. So if you hadn't read the book yet, I highly recommend it. The chapter is about the sale of the USWA and the subsequent court case brought by the new investors against Lawler. Jerry Jarrett is called as a witness and is questioned by Lawler's attorney. This is talked about in this following passage. The lawyer then asked this is Jerry Jarrett, by the way, from his book. The lawyer then asked if I would give an assessment of Jerry Lawler's business skills. I began, I don't mind answering this again because I've told Jerry all this to his face many times, that he is the worst business person I've ever encountered. The lawyer said that he has made a lot of money in the wrestling business, so he must be very motivated by the profits derived from ownership of the business. True? Jerry responds, no, that is not true. Jerry is not motivated by money in the least. Jerry Lawler and I have fought constantly because he'd rather play softball than draw out a sellout house at a wrestling show. It's one of the main reasons I've sold off my interest in the business.
I love it. I love it. So true, too. So true.
So Ralph said, so Jarrett was also irritated by the emotional mismatch between softball and wrestling for Lawler. So thank you for sending that, Ralph. I know it's kind of a long thing to read, but I thought it helped illustrate. I think a lot of people think we're kind of mean at times, or we kind of create narratives for the show. But I just wanted to share that I was glad that Ralph sent that to us, because it kind of shows that, hey, this is something that everybody noticed, and everybody, even his business partner, or maybe especially his business partner, Jerry Jarrett, was frustrated with. So again, thanks for sending that. It's ironic. You two guys, if you watch the show, I'm sure are thinking the same thing. It's ironic that you sent this week, because the episode we're about to review, the King seemed motivated AF, as the kids say these days. This was the most motivated and emotional Lawler promo we will hear in quite some time. So we're going to check that in a little bit. And have either of you guys read Jerry Jarrett's book that he mentioned?
I have not.
I haven't either.
I hadn't either. I want to track that down, though. I've always been interested in reading it, and this has really piqued my interest, to say the least. So let's head back to Saturday, June 26, 1993, for another episode of USWA Championship Wrestling. And coincidentally, just as Richard Mullican isn't here this week, neither is Corey Macklin. I'm starting to think Richard is planning these things ahead, that he doesn't want to have to watch a show when his old boss Corey isn't on, right? Because, last time Corey was off, Richard was off. So
I'm seeing a pattern.
Absolutely. So with Corey absent, the show opens with Dave Brown, and Jeff Jarrett is sitting in the co-host chair. And we get some odd stuff right out of the gate here, guys. Before we even start to talk about it, let's see a little clip of how the show started out this week.
Owen Hart a little bit later on. We're gonna hear from the new USWA Tag Team Champions coming to a little bit later on. Jeff, I know you've got a situation coming up. You agreed to a match with Tony Falk, and losing my train of thought here. You agreed to a match with Tony Falk, hair against hair. You won it, and now the big match is signed.
That's right.
Yeah, let us. Let's sign it. You mind signing his autograph?
In the open?
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll talk about it. This match has been signed. Now we've been trying to get this contract signed for a couple of weeks. Jeff. Yeah. Well, okay. Come on over. All right, let's do this.
I'm a big fan, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
This is great.
Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoy the show. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
That was just odd to me. I know, right when it happened, I was thinking this got to be part of an angle, but then I was like, this is so weird. Where is this going? So, yeah, I thought it was strange.
Yeah, I think it kind of like if I'm a fan and I'm potentially going to go to a future show, it almost tells me that, this kind of behavior is okay. Nobody's really like stopping him. And Dave usually wouldn't even pay anybody in the crowd any attention. So automatically, this is just screaming, yeah, this doesn't smell right to me.
That was where my mind went to as well, Josh. As usual, my wife, Rosie, was in the room doing her schoolwork over on her laptop as I was watching this for the initial pass through of making some initial notes. And yeah, I mean, it's not unusual for people in the studio to be yelling, but clearly the fact that Dave was so visibly distracted, and he acknowledges that he's distracted, and then they cut the camera over to the guy causing the distraction. Felt strange right out of the gate. But again, my wife looks up from her schoolwork, and she's not a total mark, and she used to be somewhat of a wrestling fan, more so than she is now, but she's never been in the business or anything like that. And she goes, who's that guy? Because he's clearly part of the show for them to acknowledge him like this, and then for him to call him over and give him an autograph, because you wouldn't want everyone in the studio every week to think that all you got to do is distract the show, and now you can get free autographs on TV. And I was like, all right, so she's coming to this conclusion right out of the gate. I would have to think more people are.
Did you find out? Is it anyone that we know?
Well, no, I don't know that. I was going to wait and reveal later.
Oh, okay, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Because at this point, we haven't actually revealed these really even part of the show.
Oh, okay,
yet.
all right.
This is just our theories. But so Jeff goes on to say that he was an idiot last week. He got tricked by Brian Christopher, who outsmarted him and fooled him, and he found every adjective in the world to describe how stupid he was to fall for Brian's trickery last week, which resulted in him beating Tony Falk in a hair match, which then got him a shot at Brian's Southern title, but also managed to put Jeff's hair on the line for this week at the same time. And Jeff just continues to drive home the point of how stupid he was, so on and so forth. So First match of the day, and I forgot this guy even actually wrestled in Memphis himself. Scott Taylor versus Chris Frazier, old Scotty Too Hottie himself right here. What did you guys think of this matchup until we get to the finish? We're going to see a clip of the finish before we discuss that. But just seeing Scott Taylor pop up here and just the match in general, what did you guys think about it?
Well, I mean, I thought, you know, hey, I recognize that name. And sure enough, Scotty Too Hottie. I mean, this is like, I'm guessing where Brian and Scotty would first meet. I mean, I couldn't think that where they would be wrestling anybody or wrestling on a show together anywhere else. But I thought he looked great. You know, it seemed like he looked a lot better than what I remember he looked like in WWF. But it seemed like he had a ton of potential. But good God, Chris Frazier was fucking this match up left and right. Like there were two incidences where it was a big move spot, and he was relying on Frazier to make him look good and taking the move correctly. And it was just the finisher itself was just god awful.
Horrible with that. Scott got a good reaction, and it's kind of weird that you could see how good of a worker he was. Even this is really young Scott Taylor, but he was solid worker. The only reason I knew he did Memphis before or remembered was, you know, he's been on the current Memphis Wrestling, one of the shows. I don't know what show number it was, but he came down and he actually said in his interview he had been in Memphis before. So I didn't remember it all.
Okay.
The only thing about Scott is he kind of looked like all the other undercard guys with the blonde hair and the tights that he had on, but he got a good reaction. And Chris Frazier, oh man, I don't think he's no longer with us. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's so many stories about Chris Frazier. Just reach out to somebody. So
yeah, poor Chris Frazier was no better in his last match than he was in his very first match.
Not at all. Not at all.
That can be said about a few people, but I did some shows for NWA Mississippi with Chris, and he was something. But yeah,
Chris was wearing a mask one night. I was backstage, and he wouldn't take the mask off because he was kayfabing. Backstage,
I'm sure he was real hard to spot. Yeah.
I was just like, who is that goof?
Let's take a look at where things really went off the rails for this match right here. Let's see the finish.
Morning. Scott Taylor up on the top rope. Chris Frazier more than halfway across the ring. He nails him down. He missed the hole he was going for, but he ended up knocking Frazier down, picks him up, and now he DDTs him in the middle of the ring. Count of 1, 2. This one is over. Give the victory to Scott Taylor as he defeats Chris Frazier.
So you can see it all over Taylor's face here. When he got up from Chris Frazier falling backwards in the wrong direction from his attempted DDT from the top rope, that Scotty was very too hotty at this point at Chris Frazier. You know, I mean, he botched the finish, which is a commonly used term now by fans. I don't think back then fans used that term, but anyway, after the botched top rope DDT, are you guys in favor with what he did? I mean, he just jumped up, gave him a regular DDT, and then pinned him. Personally, I always felt when something got that obviously screwed up, maybe you work your way into something else that is going to be something they have to go along with. But just the fact that happened that way, that he immediately just picks him up and DDTs him, I was like, come on, man, put a little distance in between.
I didn't have any problem with it. I had no problem with it because it was just like I was shaking my head just as bad as Scott was.
Yeah, I felt for Scott, man. I could feel his frustration. So he probably just wanted to get out as quickly as possible so he could dog cuss him in the back.
Dog cussing.
Yeah, because I'm sure he had zero confidence he wouldn't fuck up whatever else he would have tried to call in that moment. But you pretty much, I mean, you can screw up to take it a DDT. I mean, Frazier just did it. But the way he hooked his head and drove it in the mat, there was much room to screw that up. So that's fair, I guess. So we go from that match right into a promo with his future partner. He just didn't know. And, you know, one other thing I want to point out, though, how funny is it that if he showed up 2 weeks earlier, Scott Taylor could have been Homeboy back in '93, long before Too Cool. So just
Oh man,
terrible timing. But anyway, Brian Christopher and Miss Simpson come out, and Miss Simpson has moved up from the maid's outfit that looked like it came from a costume shop to now she's wearing a fancy dress you'd expect to see Nancy Sullivan or Elizabeth sporting. And this promo is fun. There's maybe 6 words in the entire promo that she even tries to use this British accent, and then the rest of it she's just talking completely normal. Like, I thought at first she had just dropped the gimmick, but then you would catch certain words where she had put the accent on it, and then as the longer she talked, kind of like Whitey Jenkins sometimes, it just became her regular voice. So, and there's the dress we were speaking of there. Like I say, a step up from the costume shop maid outfit that she had been wearing for the last couple of weeks.
Well, do you think she got a promotion? Maybe that's why they were celebrating. She's no longer the maid.
Well, that's true.
She refers to herself as a nanny here a couple of different times in this promo. So nanny may be a step up from the maid, but I was going to say it certainly isn't because she's gotten a raise from the USWA. If anything,
definitely she's provoked a raise or two.
Well, she's raised some stuff, but nobody gave her more money, I'm sure. Brian may have found this in his mom's closet or something and gave it to her, but it wasn't because Jarrett or Lawler was giving her more money, I'm quite sure. But just for the purposes of dialect study, let's watch this promo from Miss Simpson and listen to. And if you're listening at home, see if you can pick out the moments where she brings back the British accent ever so briefly, and then goes right back to Tony Adams.
Now here she is, Miss Simpson.
Dave, you just keep your mouth shut and listen to this little lady right here.
Brian, could you do me a favor? Take care of that imbecile over there.
I don't know where you get all these freeloaders over here. Keep your mouth shut, okay?
Mrs. Texas, what have you come up with now? Monday you have the loser gets in the mud. Well, darling, let me tell you something right now. This nanny does not get in the mud. No, a gutter rat like you, that's a different story. You belong there. Obviously, you belong there. Just take a look at this. This is class. Take a look at this. This is class. What a big difference, lady. Let me tell you, if I ever get my hands on you, because I never lose. Brian, have we ever lost a match yet? Have we ever? No, we haven't. You can't do anything to win. So Monday, I'm going to take such pleasure in smashing your face and making you swallow up in that thick, gooey mud. I wouldn't give you an autograph if...
I'm going to warn you, keep your...
You're a gutter rat, and this is class.
Oh, that's horrible. God awful horrible.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like she's just going out there and just doing whatever she wants to do. And there's nobody like coaching her in any way saying, look, if you're going to be English, please be English. But if you're not, just go out there and be Tony Adams, but let's not do the back and forth bullshit. It looks stupid. I mean, I'm a total fan of the idea of what she's doing, but it's that in and out shit that kind of throws me off.
Yeah, just go out there and be hot. That's good enough. We don't need the fake accent and all that jazz. But so the autograph guy is at it again, and just as Miss Simpson starts to address him, we cut to a break, which to me is more in the vein of how you'd expect this to be handled if it was real. But I mean, that ship's already sailed with how we handled it in the opening segment today. So we go to a break that it looks like in classic USWA fashion, they are about to replay the fucking botched DDT off the top rope. But somebody had the good sense this time to stop the clip just before it got to that. But why revisit that anyway? You know what I mean?
Like we said before, I think it's just some guy up there controlling the board. He doesn't know wrestling, and it's just high action. It's like a top rope, big impact. And he probably knew that it was screwed up the way it happened. But yeah, we'll pause it right before.
So Brian comes back out after the commercial with his music and the whole bit, and immediately immediately starts in with the autograph guy, but eventually the guy wins Brian over by calling him the best wrestler in the world or some such. So Brian finally caves, signs his autograph book, and we eventually get to see a video of Tony Falk getting his head shaved last week after losing to Jeff Jarrett. Then Brian heads to the ring for our second match of the day, as he will be facing Uncle Danny, Nightmare Danny Davis. So was pretty excited when I saw this match happening. I know we've seen it a lot in USWA. We've seen it a few times in 93. They had a whole big feud 92, but it's always good stuff, so I wasn't mad at it. So the Nightmare is in control from the word go here. And after a couple minutes, Jeff Jarrett strolls out, kissing hands and shaking babies, as they say, and he makes his way over. And he takes the autograph book from the fan at ringside that Brian just signed for. And Brian ends up getting counted out while going to confront the autograph guy at ringside. So the first point we want to stress here right now, Uncle Danny picked up a win over Brian Christopher. I guess they're trying to cancel off that loss he had to take to Tony Falk last week to build Tony Falk up for the hair match. But no matter how you slice it, this non-existent record book they always refer to in wrestling that Gorilla Monsoon used to like to talk about, in that record book, it shows that Nightmare Danny Davis defeated Brian Christopher on television. So what did you guys think of this match?
I mean, I thought it served its purpose. You know what I mean? It did a favor for Uncle Danny, and it just put the cherry on top for this angle. You know what I mean? And like, I was kind of getting frustrated with the whole contract angle, to be honest. I mean, it's like, Lord have mercy, how much are we going to beat this drum? But they actually got creative with it. Now, with the plant and letting him be a part of the show so much, it does scream a little bit, but at least they were creative with the punchline. And I remember being 10 years old, just like, oh shit, that was awesome. You know, so it worked. Right.
I thought it did too. I thought it worked. I wanted to make note that Falk had a damn good complete shave. You know, Memphis Wrestling sometimes doesn't shave the head really good, but boy, they did a good job on him. I love all this setup. I would have liked to seen that guy get beat up more. So,
yeah, I would count me in for that. He had been so annoying. I mean, I know he's playing his part, but he'd been so annoying. I would really want to see him get the shit beat out of him, and we'll get to that here shortly as we go to another commercial break as Brian is yelling, screaming about conspiracy again. And when we return, we get another shot of Jarrett and the masked Jerry Lawler with MJF, as it were, back in these days. This was the only MJF that existed in our world back then, except for Dave Brown. Dave Brown was the only person on the planet who referred to him as, in 1993, as Michael Fox. Whenever he, there you see the picture of you and Lawler and Michael Fox. So I'm assuming Dave Brown wasn't familiar with his work, perhaps. I don't know, but of course, we have to point out that all the kids are here that are going to the movies with Jarrett and Lawler. They're here in the crowd. I'm assuming the autograph guy is getting to go with them as his only payment for the role he played in today's show, but that's just speculation on my part. Then Jarrett gloats about how stupid Brian was for falling for his ruse to get him to sign the contract. We find out that all this hoopla wasn't done to get Brian to sign a contract to undo the hair stipulation that Jeff is so up in arms about. It actually was there to allow Jeff to assign a special referee to this match. And guys, we know who, when a babyface wants to assign a special referee to a match in Memphis, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, you guessed it, the fabulous Jackie Fargo. So that's what's happening here. And we go to a video narrated by Michael St. John explaining who the Fargos are and were, just in case new fans weren't aware. And by 1993, it's a good possibility that a lot of people watching this aren't necessarily familiar with Jackie Fargo. Honestly, I was hoping we get one of those classic Jackie Fargo, promos sitting on that same ugly couch they always used to send in promos promoting the Fabulous Ones, be it Kernan Lane or Rich and Gilbert, and then 85 back to Kernan Lane. But we didn't get that here. What did you guys think of this whole segment?
I liked it. I really liked the way they did it. It's something different. It's not the same old. Jackie Fargo interviews, promos were always so funny with it. Like you said, I never thought about that couch, but that was a god-awful couch. I think everybody in the South had that couch, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I remember being 10 years old and just thinking, "Oh my God, this is what it led to," you know. And I wasn't like a Jackie Fargo fan per se, but he's kind of like a past president or some shit. You know, it's like you knew he was somebody, and everybody of note in Memphis treated him like he was somebody. So I always kind of stand up for Your Honor whenever he'd come through.
But
I
Gene,
I like the idea.
Gene and Josh, think about this though. Is Fargo the referee you want? Because in one of the most famous matches ever, he counted to 4 when Lawler won the belt. So I'm not sure he can count to just 3. So who knows?
But as long as he can get to 3, because I mean, you think how many champions like Jerry Lawler can say, not only did I beat Kurt Hennig for the AWA World Title, I beat him for a 4 count, one more, and I could have been like Bundy for the World Title. So
that way, there's no question.
There's no question. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think anybody's mad about that. I mean, Jackie Fargo was before my time, but I can remember anytime wrestling came up, like at family gatherings or anything, like my dad and uncles would go on and on about, how great Jackie Fargo was and talk about the interns and, Sam Bass and all these guys. So I had I had a love for him just based off of all the things I'd ever heard. And of course, he'd always pop up from time to time in Memphis. So, at the time, kind of what you referred to there, Brian, we know that he came to town. Lawler finally won the world title after years. So odds are he's showing up this Monday night. We're pretty sure Jeff's not going to get his head shaved. We pretty well know Jeff's walking out with the Southern Heavyweight title. And
right.
This whole Dave Brown trying to get Brian to sign a contract nonsense is finally going to come to a close. And I think we can all say good riddance to that shit.
I agree 100%.
So after Jeff's big reveal in the last segment that this was all a ruse by him, needless to say, Brian Christopher, he's not too happy about it. But rather than to come out and show his displeasure to Jeff, as Jeff said it, or come out immediately after Jeff said what he said, he had enough common sense and he was able to keep himself calm enough to wait until well after the commercial break so that, this assault on an alleged fan was able to go out live on the air all across Memphis and be recorded for courtroom later, right?
Prosperity, yes.
He's mad, but he's not that mad. So let's take a look at what happened when Brian got his hands on the autograph-seeking fan.
Give me the microphone. Well. We got ourselves a little stooge out here. Jeff Sheriff's little stooge, huh? Hey, come here, Pug.
Come on, Brian. Hey, Brian.
Come here, Pug. Hey,
All right. Don't hurt it.
Well. Jeff Jarrett's a little mastermind and you're a stooge, huh? Well, I'm going to tell you something. This is what happens when you mess with Brian Christopher, boy.
There's Jeff to help out, thank goodness. Jeff, take care of him over there.
So, guys, we see once again another fine example of how inept and useless the security is here in the WMC USWA studios. Have you ever seen a more half-hearted attempt at stopping an attack on anyone, much less a supposed fan from the audience?
Hey, I made a note here because, we had the big security guy with the muscles and everything. All of a sudden now, all the security people have hepatitis. Did you notice that? Everybody has hepatitis. So there we go.
Big Earn passed away, and that one security guy, the white guy that you see on camera, is on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry.
Mayor McCall tried his best to get me to bring him on our show a few months ago. And I may go back and take him up on this and have the guy come on and ask what the fuck is up with them just having their thumb up their ass during all these attacks and looking like a bunch of goofs. But The other thing I noticed in this, why I used the word I just used, never since you pointed out, BT, I've noticed that Brian uses a lot of words that wrestlers usually only use behind the scenes.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Huge and shit like that people don't necessarily use in everyday vernacular. What did you think of this, Josh?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, you know, that little punk getting what he deserves. And dude, it gave me flashbacks because Richard Lee and Brian Christopher did a very similar gimmick.
Very similar angle. Yep.
It was, I guess, less than 10 years later. I think it was late 2002 or something like that. Richard had just got into the business, and his first big road trip was with Brian Christopher. So they had to go to TNA when it was being taped in Nashville. And I forget which number episode it is, but you could just on YouTube, Brian Christopher attacks fan TNA, and that's Richard getting his ass whipped by Brian Christopher. He pulls him over the railing. So yeah, I think that's probably where he got that idea for, because he had done it less than 10 years before. But yeah, it looked like he got some good shots in on him too. I liked it.
We never knew who this guy was. I was looking for them to do the whole Jimmy Suzuki thing where, you know, that Savage did. Maybe we could have got some blood or something on this guy, but we didn't do that. So
if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're just listening and you happen to know, if you have any information on who this guy is, please send it our way via the Facebook page, or you can email me, genejackson95@gmail.com, because I'm curious to, because you know he's somebody that's somehow involved in the business. He wasn't just a fan they asked to do this. So I'd be curious to know if it's somebody who was maybe worked outlaw shows, like maybe along with the guys that Contract Incorporated and the Purple Demon or whatever we saw a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's somebody else from their little promotion. I don't know, but I would be interested to know a little more about that. But pretty well executed. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I think this was probably Brian's idea, perhaps, since he did revisit it again. And last time this came up, I did share that video of Brian beating up Richard on the Facebook page. But since it came up again, I'll try to share it there again in the next couple of days.
Awesome.
Let folks check that out. So let's take our first podcast commercial break of the day, and then we'll be right back with Owen Hart winning the Unified World Title.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
All right, guys, when we return from the break on the show, Dave pitches to last week's Owen Hart versus Papa Shango match for the unified title. And let's check this out. There's something interesting goes on here.
And the unified world champion Papa Shango celebrating during this bout already. Papa Shango, the champion, Owen Hart, the Rocket, the challenger, Hart Wrestling out of Canada. Oh, look at Papa Shango. He's outside the ring. He's avoiding the referee, Frank Morrell. I don't know what he was doing, but he slammed Hart right in the referee, Frank Morrell. We're 7 minutes past on this one. Hey, look at Papa Shango asking for that funny, crazy-looking stick that he carries in the ring. And Prentice standing over that. I don't know what Bert Prentice is doing. And Papa Shango is asking for the stick. Oh, he grabs up Prentice in there. Nails Prentice. Prentice throws the stick to Owen Hart. And Hart takes that stick that Papa Shango carries. Nails Papa Shango. Goes over and rolls Frank over. 1, 2, 3. And we've got a new unified world champion. Oh boy, just like that in 7 minutes and 38 seconds.
So my first takeaway when I watched this clip and several of the clips from Mid-South Coliseum was Frank Morrell's back. All of a sudden, we got another referee besides TD Steele and Paul Neighbors. So Bert turns on Papa Shango in favor of Owen Hart as he throws him that crazy-looking stick in there, as Corey referred to it, previously known as the voodoo stick. I guess maybe he thought that sounded silly, so he thought it would be better to call it a crazy-looking stick.
Could you get a shirt with that on it and a big stick, the stick there on it, crazy-looking stick on it? Man,
we probably can figure that out.
Here's what got me. So I don't remember Owen Hart being in Memphis until last week when y'all were telling me. Like I told you, I didn't watch this when it was going on. But Hart, that match was only 7 minutes. They just went in there and got introductions and just started them. I mean, 7 minutes is all they worked. Crazy.
Yeah. And I think it literally was just to move the belt from Shango to Owen Hart.
Sure. Yeah.
Shango had not gotten over a lick. He had seemingly not sold a single ticket through this whole reign as unified champion, although really his whole reign was he come in, he beat Lawler for it. He come back and did a DQ with Lawler. And then he lost to Owen Hart in this match, if you will. Before we move on to Bert Prentice here, what did you think of that, Josh?
I started thinking about like shoot interviews I'd watched with Papa Shango, Godfather, whatever, and he was talking about his perspective of this time. And he was saying essentially he thought, I may be twisting some things, but I think that the deal was that he thought Lawler was trying to like just kind of use him as his black champion because he needed a black champion for that area since it was a predominantly black area. And he didn't like the way that he was being treated, and he didn't think they was taking him seriously or something to that effect. He didn't, it was like you had the title match, and then you would have Lawler versus the referee after his match. I think that really got to him. So it's probably why this match was only 7 minutes and why it was just like kind of clunky. It looked like, obviously, if Shango was into it, he would have been more passionate about it. But it looked like he was just out there going through the motions, 1, 2, 3, let's get out of here. And, going back, watching those shoot interviews, it gave me a good perspective on what his attitude was during this time.
We talk about this, all the booking that we see and why they're not drawn. And to me, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the main event, but can you imagine going all the way down to Memphis to the Coliseum to watch the show, and it's Owen Hart, and you're 10 times excited about Owen Hart being there, and they only work 7 minutes? I mean, that would have pissed me off.
Yeah, and it doesn't showcase any of Owen's abilities at all.
Right.
I'm glad you saw that, Josh, and could share that insight from Charles Wright, because I've never heard that. And, you know, to me, like, and this may just be me, you guys may say you felt completely differently. I mean, obviously, at the time, I was well aware that Papa Shango wasn't a white guy, but I never saw that character in the respect of, oh, this is a black champion, this is a black guy. It's just, Papa Shango, this weird voodoo dude, you know?
No.
So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but
to me, he was a cartoon character. You know what I mean? I didn't think that's
Exactly.
a black guy. That's a fucking voodoo guy, you know?
Yeah, I never thought, oh, they put the champion on the black guy for, you know, to have a black champion. It's like, no, they put the title on the WWF guy who has a fucking gimmick that, in theory, should have been a big win for Lawler. But I think once they saw he wasn't getting over, I think they probably did the DQ to keep the belt on him. And they're like, because it's, I mean, this all makes sense that we want to swap the belt to Owen based on what happened at King of the Ring. And now we're going to, you know, play off this in Memphis. But it really didn't do Lawler any good to win the belt from Shango, and then he loses it to Owen for Owen to get a reign with the title. So let's move it. As silly as it may be and as illogical as it may be, let's move the belt from Shango to Owen. But at the same time, we got to get Owen over as a heel. So we have Bert, you know, help him screw Shango, and then we have him and Bert come out and beat the shit out of Lawler. And so Bert comes out next and gives what I think was a perfectly logical and believable explanation on why he turned on Papa Shango. You know, the Harts called him saying they want to get their hands on Lawler, and he told them, well, if Owen has the belt, Lawler will come to him. In my mind, that makes that's perfect heel logic right there, or just logic in general. And then he has to kind of cut away from talking about the big angle to promote his match. So, you know, he drops a couple of hard M's here when he's mentioning his opponent, Chief Lone Eagle. Couldn't get away with that kind of talk these days, dropping the OM word on TV. But after this promo, we take another break, and we return from the break. We see more footage.
M word, look, I'm going to play real. What? You can't say midget? Midget's not really. Midget does not offend me. Does it offend y'all?
This isn't Patreon. Well, the N-word doesn't offend you, BT, but don't mean you can go dropping it on the show.
My bad.
Yeah, that was like Richard 2 weeks ago, P3 Radio. My God, he had a fucking triad about like Bert Prentice. I mean, so I wasn't shocked. I was like, did Richard watch ahead? What?
Yeah. He don't want to watch that week's show, but I think he's watching ahead. So we do want to apologize if there are any fun-size Americans out here who heard what BT just said.
My bad.
The views of Homeboy BT do not necessarily reflect those of
That's right. Heel BT
Kelly or the Retro Wrestling Review or any of the hosts here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. We do sincerely and deeply apologize. But then we see a clip of Owen Hart attacking Lawler during his main event match with referee Paul Neighbors. I love how at one point Owen is beating the shit out of Lawler, and Eddie Marlin tells him if he doesn't stop, he'll not just end his wrestling career in the USWA, but he'll ban him from wrestling anywhere. Like Vince McMahon's going to abide by Eddie Marlin's ruling down in Memphis one Monday night.
That's right.
I saw like in my mind's eye, I felt like Eddie Marlin had a pistol in his pocket. You know what I mean? Like that's what he was letting him know. Look, if you touch him one more time, you ain't gonna wrestle nowhere again. You know.
I would like to think that's what it was, because
that old Southern guy, you know.
Because Owen and Bert stopped beating on Lawler once he says that, and again, I just picture in my head of like, if they would have kept beating on him and then they go back to Stanford and Owen's like, come on, Vince. I'm like, goddamn, pal, I can't overrule Eddie Marlin. I mean, he has a lot of stroke in this business. But,
by the way, the main event was 2 minutes. I wrote that down. It was a 2-minute main event. And I want to point out, Richard said that he would leave after the Owen Hart match last week. So if Richard would have left, he would have missed the whole big angle with Owen jumping Lawler. Can you believe that?
And he already planned on leaving, but I'm sure after that 7-minute snooze fest, he probably left in the middle of Papa Shango and Owen Hart.
And he missed
before the big crazy stick got involved. But they quit beating on Lawler, and Owen cuts a good promo here. And Bert did a good job pointing out that they have now left Lawler just as he left Bret at the King of the Ring, which was a good visual for this week. And luckily, someone was there to capture it on film with an actual picture for Lawler to use here shortly. We'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, I thought that was all, well done. Like I said, Owen, not necessarily known for his promo skills, but he did a good job here. So after another extended break, Lawler comes out and starts a promo by once again addressing everyone's concerns for his heelish behavior on the WWF television, which everybody there in Memphis can see. And he tries his best to apply whatever logic he can cling to for everyone in Memphis being able to see him being a total shithead on WF TV every week while playing the good guy here on Memphis television. He plays it off by saying he's going back to being the old king, which essentially is saying he's going back to being a heel. Because he doesn't give two hoots about anyone up there. Which, see, he's not a terrible heel because, no self-respecting heel would say, I don't give two hoots about someone. So he's still a good guy. I don't love this explanation for being a heel in WWF, but I mean, it's a pretty tough scenario to overcome. It's the best you can do with what what you've got to work with. So I'm not shitting on it, but I have to say Lawler showed more fire and emotion in this one promo than we have seen from him the entire year.
The whole year, right here.
The
best promo he's done right here.
So let's hear a little bit of how he wrapped up this promo right now, and then let's see what you guys think about it.
And have some little rinky-dink tournament, beat 3 measly wrestlers, and then want to call yourself the king. You're damn right. That makes me hot. And then when I step up on that stage and confront you with it, Bret Hart, you have the audacity to call me a Burger King. Well, let me tell you something. When he called me the Burger King, I gave him the Whopper, didn't I? Now, all I got to say to you, Bret Hart, is me and you got some unfinished business. Somewhere down the line, our paths are going to cross, and you're going to wish they hadn't. But in the meantime, I got somebody I'm going to take care of, and that is your punk brother, Owen Hart. Now, usually the big brother goes around taking care of business for the little brother, but apparently Bret Hart is such a coward, he's sending his little brother down to try to do what he can't do. I want you to take a good close look at this picture. It's from last Monday night. Can you get a shot of it right there? That is me laying down on the steps with Owen Hart standing over me. I've looked at this picture every day, and I will look at this picture every day until Monday night. And I'm going to promise Owen Hart, and I'm going to promise everybody in Memphis, Tennessee, that's the last time you'll ever see the king in this position. Do you understand that? Do you hear what I'm saying, Owen Hart? Because I got something in store for you, punk. You come on down to Memphis. Come on down to my backyard. Because me and you got a date Monday night. And you ain't gonna like it. Because you may not only get the Whopper, you may get flame broiled too, punk. Come on, Steve.
All right. We get all the Lawler hits there. He even teases burning him. We didn't get this kind of passion against Mike Miller, against the Harlem Knights, against even Brian Christopher. But he is fired up here. Now, I will say this. He spent the first half of this promo talking about how offended and pissed off he was that the WWF did a King of the Ring tournament and had the audacity to crown a king. You know what might would have gone a long way towards me really believing that that was legit? If, as he's doing this promo about how much he hated the King of the Ring, if Lawler wasn't wearing a fucking WWF King of the Ring t-shirt that promotes their event. I hated this so much. I'm wearing the free t-shirt they gave me.
I wrote he looked like shit, but this was a great promo. So that's why I say he came out in those Zubas and that damn t-shirt that looked like it was a homemade t-shirt. It's like, well, let's go ahead and make us a King of the Ring shirt. It was god awful, and I was like, God, he looks like shit. And then the next line I wrote was, my God, what a promo. So yeah. The funny part for me was he said he was going to look at that picture until Monday night. Then he tore it up. What the hell? Right? What the fuck?
Yeah, immediately I'm like, you liar! You're a liar!
I'm gonna look at this picture.
I'm gonna have to tape it back together first, which is gonna be a challenge. But apparently, Hulk Animal sent a Zubaz care package to Memphis, and Lawler and Danny Davis were the first ones to reach in there and take these things out. Because
the Zubaz thing was one guy would wear them, and then they would be cool, and every guy in the dressing room. And it took a while before it got down to Memphis Wrestling and the local guys. And then since Lawler wore them, every one of the local guys in the promotion, you see them showing up Zubaz. And then I've seen it happen a couple other times, but it was kind of like they were just ironically wearing Zubaz.
Yeah.
But I had my pair, so.
Well, do you know what was funny about this error? I remember, my grandma was a seamstress or whatever, right?
Right.
Well, she was making knockoff Zubaz for Uncle Danny and me and anybody else that wanted them, but it wasn't like the zebra print. You know what I mean? He would go to fucking Hancock Fabric or wherever and just pick whatever kind of pattern that he wanted, as long as it was, cloth type material. And she would just make him the hammer pants, man. And we wore the shit out of those, dude. I loved them.
I had a pair that I bought. The only ones they had on the rack. I was in Minnesota and bought them in Minnesota. They were pink and purple tiger stripes or something, just horrible. And then I bought a pair of Dallas Cowboy ones, but yeah, those pink and purple ones weren't even the zebra stripes or anything. They were just totally different, and I wore the shit out of those things. So I was cool. Don't say wasn't cool, but I was.
You weren't here last week, homeboy, but last week Uncle Danny come out rocking those things, and he whipped the entire heel dressing room.
Hey, I know it. I watched the show, so yeah.
What a way to promote them. Now, it was fun to me that right after Lawler cuts this heated, passionate promo, like I said, the first one we've seen in a long time, Dave immediately cuts to shilling for Lawler's fireworks stand, which is funny. And then he runs down the card for Monday night, and Lawler goes and calms down and realizes, oh, I had more shit I need to talk about. So he comes right back out on the other side of that promo to calmly promote a match against Paul Neighbors coming up that evening, about going to the movies with the kids, about how Pizza Hut was bringing free pizza and Dave could have some. Which felt weird to shoehorn into a wrestling promo. Of course, we get to what's important. We talk about the softball games. And then he fires back up again at the end to promote his match with Owen. So that was all pretty fun. I enjoyed it. And after Lawler promo number 2 of the day, we see a clip of New Jack and Homeboy defeating Simply Divine for the USWA Tag Team title. So after sheet riders like Dave Meltzer and guys like BT over here were calling.
Hey, now, I wasn't reporting in '93. I told you.
I know. You're one of those guys.
One of them stooges. I was one of them stooges.
So. One of those goofs.
Yeah, that was me.
All these sheet riders are saying New Jack's debut. Which, tell me if you think this is a little strong, BT.
It was.
They called New Jack's debut as one of the worst Memphis debuts in history. Which, Jesus Christ,
disagree. Just totally disagree. I didn't think he looked that bad. I mean, I didn't, the gimmick was funny for me, and I didn't really shit on the gimmick. I just thought it was just really stupid. But no, I didn't think New Jack looked that bad. I mean, I don't know who was given. I gave Dave stuff from, I was trying to think about this. So I graduated in 85, probably 87 to about, might have been 86, 87 to about 90 or 91. I talked to Dave every Sunday afternoon talking about Memphis wrestling. So I was his stooge and gave him the information. So anything in Observer during those years was stuff that I just reported what was happening on the show, or I probably had guys like Dutch Mantell and Jerry Lawler feeding me shit for Dave Meltzer that wasn't even true. So there you go.
But so when Dave would put these, cracks in, like, oh, it's one of the worst debuts for a Memphis wrestler. And well, people are thinking so-and-so. Is that because the person who sent it in is putting that in their report? And so now
what he does, what he would do is he would call or he would get an email, and it would be a person. Everybody assumed it was Dave, but in reality, it was somebody that was reporting, because back then we didn't have, YouTube or anything like that. Then you would see Dave come back maybe 3 or 4 weeks later when I sent him a tape of 4 Memphis wrestling shows, because I could get it on 6 hours, and send him a tape, and then he would watch you sometimes see him say stuff like, well, but he would disagree with what I said.
I figured that had to be the case, because when I look at the dates of these newsletters and considering the time frame, like you said, there's no YouTube, I would think, well, there's no way that somebody recorded this, sent Dave a tape, Dave had time to watch it and then write about it in a week's time. So this is him taking their review of the show.
Taking their review within, probably about 24 hours after the show went off. There's no telling there's all kinds of talk at one time about his phone bill. His mom was like, you got to stop. Because I never called Dave. I never would. It wouldn't be, because I didn't have the money. I was poor as dirt. But yeah, I mean, it was, if you looked at what Dave put now, Dave sometimes got other stuff from other people, and you would see him add something here and there. But Dave had, at the time in Memphis, Lawler was a subscriber. I know y'all asked that, but yeah, and I meant to tell you, yeah, he subscribed to it. I think Dutch was a subscriber. I can't think of anyone else just off. Maybe, Ken Wayne also. They were all subscribers. And the Observer then mainly was used, and I know I'm getting off on Observer, but it was used for the guys, not just review, but they were looking at the gates. So if I wanted to go to Kansas City, Dave was one of the very few people that was putting in what Kansas City's drawing, what the Mid-South Coliseum is drawing. So if I wanted to go to one of those territories, then I could look at what the gates were, and you could pretty much judge what you're going to be paid. So the first time I gave Ken Wayne one of the sheets for him to look at, that's all he did. He was looking for somewhere else to go, and he didn't even look at the news or see what Dave said about the news. It was all about who's drawn well, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you could see who was coming and going to know if there's even a spot to go to. So
right. It was a trade. It was more of a trade publication. It was there was 1,200 people, I think, when I first started subscribing in '86. 1,200 subscribers. It was 800 something. It went up to 1,200 in a 4 or 5 year period, because Dave had got in a national sports. I can't think of the name of the newspaper, but it was a national sports newspaper, and he got a big surge of subscribers at the time.
Okay. Well, I find it fun because, hearing New Jack in a couple of different shoot interviews, we've heard that New Jack and Homeboy was directly Jerry Jarrett's idea. This wasn't some other booker. This is his idea. So while dirt sheets and different people are shitting on the New Jack and Homeboy thing, he doubles down and puts the tag team titles on them in their second week together, or technically their first week together. Honestly, that was the first Monday night. They beat Simply Divine. They're the new tag team champions. We're going to see them in action here in a moment. But
we had 14 minutes. They actually went 14 minutes. So yay, we had a long match there. So
yeah, and we're not going to call that one this time. But before we get there, though, it is time for this week's promo class from our master of promos, the one and only Miss Texas. Let's see how she does this week.
We got a match coming up, but first, Miss Texas is here for a word about an upcoming match.
Miss Simpson, you call me a gutter rat, and you're not used to rolling in mud? Well, honey, I heard you used to do more than roll in mud, if you know what I mean. Miss Simpson, you truck stop tramp. Now, when I get you in the ring, hold on, Dave.
Oh, me, that's a, ooh.
When I get you in the ring, I'm going to get a handful of mud and shove it down your throat and make you like it. Because you couldn't beat me on your best day. You hear me, honey? Now, you either have Brian Christopher.
All right, look out. Here's Bert Prentice coming out here. Bert, we're trying to conduct an interview, and then we've got a match, if you don't mind. Number one, Brian Christopher is way too upset over what Miss Jarrett did to come out here and defend Miss Simpson's honor, and I'm going to do it. Let me tell you, you gutter tramp, you're nothing but a rat in this business, and you're not going to come out here and talk bad about Miss Simpson or anybody else. Now, Eddie Marlin may be mad at me and may be mad at the Hart family, but this is not a circus. This is professional wrestling. I'm not going to wrestle no midget, and you can't make me, and Miss Simpson's not going to come out in some mud pit match against you because you're nothing but a cheap gutter tramp. You belong in that.
Wait a minute.
Looks like your house.
Wait a minute, fat boy.
Oh.
You don't give orders. You don't run nothing around here. Only thing you run is your mouth.
That's Lone Eagle. Oh, Bert Prentice. Ooh, my goodness gracious, into the mud. Get him out of here. Oh, my goodness. There you go.
Fat boy. Fat boy. You know, they say ghetto rat. They say rat a lot. Brian Christopher says rat, goof, stooge. It's all this inside term that they're doing. And you know, when that little midget came out, I got a good laugh about it. I thought it was funny. We all knew Bert was going into the mud, but man, I like this segment. Y'all probably hated it, but it was fun for me.
No, I absolutely loved it because.
Oh, really? Cool. Yeah, I loved it too.
I loved the whole thing of the little fucker biting him on the ass, to stop him from throwing Miss Texas into the mud. And honestly, he did not get up high enough on that drop kick. I'm surprised Bert didn't have like a knee injury because he hit him right behind the kneecap. And Bert's a big guy to be trying to do that kind of stuff too. But yeah, he took it great, man. Bert's a professional. I absolutely love this gimmick.
Gene, I did too. I want to tell you, she said something that it's gimmick infringement, but I ended up using it like I use it day to day now. She said, if you know what I mean, if you know what I mean behind anything, you can make it dirty. You know that, right? Yeah. And you can say, like, me and Josh went downtown and ate some Taco Bell, if you know what I mean. So there, I mean, she stole my stuff, but I guess you were supposed to. She was a hooker or something, right?
Well, I didn't know. She rolls it more than mud, if you know what I'm.
Yeah, that was a weird time to throw that in. Like, no, Miss Texas, we never know what the fuck you mean.
Fat boy.
So it's always fun when Miss Texas and Bert get out here because it always seems to get really personal. I don't know if it really does or if they just have fun that way, but it always seems like him calling her a rat and all this, which I know Brian's done it too, but
I never called her a rat. Come on, now.
Not homeboy. I just said homeboy if I was talking about you.
All right, my bad.
I felt like what brought Bert out to start with.
Speaking about Miss Texas. Oh God.
Go ahead. Of gimmick infringement. When Miss Texas says honey, that's what brings Bert Prentice out because now she's stepping on his honey love gimmick and throwing out his honey, and that's what he brings him waddling out, and he's not happy. Now here's a little fun fact. I once was in a tag team match with Lone Eagle against Chris Kilgore and his son who wrestled. He would bring him to Sammy Hall shows. I don't know how many shows he went to, but in 97, Lone Eagle would bring his son, who at the time was like 12 years old, but he too was an M word. And he would wear a mask. And if you saw him without the mask, you could tell he was a kid, but without the mask, he just looked like a big wobbly head. All right. So we did a tag.
Are you saying he was a retarded midget? Is that what you're saying?
Where did you get retarded from any of that?
I don't know. You said big head, so I was just.
They all do. That's one of the part of their.
Oh damn! I said the R word too. Shit!
Look at you. We're gonna have to put a fucking disclaimer at the beginning of the show, Josh. That I did one earlier, but I wasn't expecting the R word. But you can kind of throw around the M word. You know, you can get away with that.
My bad, guys.
They're not listening anyway. But anyhow,
we'll beat you up.
They're not listening. The midgets.
But yeah, we did the whole bit. Yeah, crawl crawl between your legs and bite your ass, and every famous midget wrestling spot we pulled out in that match, and it was a lot of fun. And the Lone Eagle had been around forever at that point. He'd been on Mid-South TV quite a bit, different things. So he really was kind of one of the first names, if you will, that I worked with, or at least to me was perceived as a name because I had watched him on television before. So, and that was the only time in all my illustrious wrestling career that I ever was in a match involving midgets.
Never worked with a midget or worked against a midget or anything. Never had.
That's the only time. No.
I love midgets though. I love them.
Well, I've heard that about you. I heard that was your preferred porn.
If I go to Walmart and I see a big booty and a midget, it is the best trip to Walmart ever. If I see a midget with a big booty, oh my God.
Is that the bridge that
always a given?
Oh, no.
Is that the bridge that leads you down the path that ends you up in prison? Is you start out liking midgets and then you realize you just like small people in general, and then next thing you know,
we'll have to talk on Patreon
you're doing
about
time.
that. Let's talk about Yeah, let's go. Where we at? Bird into mud. Bird into mud.
All right.
Come on. Off the side.
Make a note there, Josh. Whenever you need BT to wrap it up, you just bring up. Anyway, so now it's time. I don't know if you guys realize this, but we're getting to our next match, and this is actually only our third match of this entire show.
And one was real quick too. So yeah.
Exactly. So third match of the show is USWA Tag Team Champions New Jack and Homeboy taking on Sergeant O'Reilly and Mr. Clyde. Wow, blast from the past. We haven't seen Mr. Clyde in months. Sergeant O'Reilly hasn't appeared all year. I think he was around some in 92. I may be wrong.
90 and 91 for sure.
There we go. And before this match even gets going good, Chief Lone Eagle comes chasing Bert Prentice through the studio like a precursor to Wee Man and Preston Lacey on Jackass years later. They just kind of passed through a couple of times. And someone has clued Homeboy in to keep the shorts on when he wrestles so that they can truly look like PG-13 2.0 here rather than only during the entrance. But meanwhile, much like last week, in the middle of this long match, Bert Prentice comes out and cuts a promo during the match, and we just abandon the match and show the promo, but for good reason, I suppose. Bert's still out here dropping hard M's left and right. And I was wondering something, guys. Now, the story has been told for years that the night that the Godwins were going to slop Sonny, they bring the slop bucket into the dressing room, and it's a little over half full, and they're like, hey, guys, this slop bucket's going to be poured over Sonny later, so you guys don't mess with it or anything, okay? And then they leave the room, and guys proceeded to put all sorts of bodily fluids inside this can that would later get dumped over Sonny's head. Now, do you think there's any chance that once there was a mud pit being pushed out there that Bert Prentice was going to go face first in? Do you think anyone did anything similar to this mud pit?
I would say no, because I don't think, everybody you talk to, especially the local guys, none of them really have, I don't really have anything bad to say about Bert. Maybe he owed me a little money, but I don't think they would do that. I think they consider, I may be wrong, but I think they consider Bert one of the boys. So
I do too, but they also love to rib. But then again, it's not like the Bulldogs or Kurt Hennig was here.
Right. Owen Hart was, though.
He wasn't in studio, or he definitely would have probably dropped a deuce and God knows what else is in there. But anyway, we finished this match. Whoever told New Jack that he should use the belly-to-belly suplex as a finish was not his friend, clearly.
No, not at all.
He was no Magnum TA, that's for sure. Any takeaways from that match before we move past it?
I think I drove and got takeaway while this match was going on.
And finished it, I'm sure, before this match.
Sarge, though, I just want to put over Sarge, really good jobber for Memphis Wrestling Television, and he worked. You probably worked shows. I've managed Sarge before, worked many shows with Sarge. Fantastic. We had just a great time with the guy, and he worked. See, some people don't know this, but when y'all have mentioned it, there is a huge, not as bad as there is now, but there was an outlaw presence in the Memphis area, and Sarge ran shows in their towns like Blytheville, Arkansas, and stuff like that. He was usually in the main event all the time. So there was still an outlaw presence even back in those days. I always thought Sarge took the best freaking backdrop ever, and always was. I had a good, and this is before I even knew him, but I had a good time. Every time Sarge was a jobber, I knew that I knew it was going to be fun. So,
yeah, Sarge actually wrestles still in this area, like in I guess Trenton and stuff like that. It's about 30 minutes away from where I'm at right now. But yeah, there was a certain wrestling company posting a poster, and he was the main event less than a year ago. Sexy Sarge is what he goes by now. He's got like imagine Nord the Barbarian, but like if he went to a rave.
And Sarge is huge. He's just entertaining as fuck. He really is.
Definitely.
Always.
I remember doing some shows with him. It was him and a tag team partner. They were the Family of Pain or something. Mickey Ray. There you go.
I managed them when Sarge and him retired.
And wasn't Mickey Ray one of those POB guys with Sid?
Yeah, he was one of the Blonde Bombers. It was him and and Ron Rage. Yep.
And then I think at the time I was on the show with them. They were managed by the guy that looks like Tony Clifton. Sam Dollar, I think, was their manager.
Yes, Sam Dollar and Jimmy had managed them, and then and
of course Jimmy.
I was supposed to manage them in their last match. They called me and said, "Look, we can't find another manager." I guess that's what it was, but I was good.
And you were at the bottom of the list, so
at least I got a chance. I was good friends with Mickey, Ron, and Sarge, and they was like, if it was, if we can't get Hollywood Jimmy, we're gonna have used it. But they kept wrestling, so. Like he said, he's still wrestling. I wasn't a retirement match for real, but
nobody retires.
Always just have a good time with those guys and just never had a problem with, hey, let's do this instead of that kind of thing. Some people will will not want to do something that you want to do, but always, or I just shut up and let tell me what you want me to do kind of thing.
Speaking of retirements, has Derek King come back yet?
Not yet, but they had a show last night. There is a possibility they ran a big angle last night. So I don't get spoilers, but they've been building for a retirement ceremony was last night. So they did a retirement ceremony and some other stuff. And if he is coming back this time, it would have been last night. So I hadn't heard anything.
Well, hopefully so. I told him that
or Saturday night.
I couldn't make this retirement, but I hope to make the next one. So, he didn't seem as amused by that as you guys did, but anyway. So on the show now, we move to highlights of the Danny Davis-Paul Neighbors feud up until now.
Oh, Lord.
And then Danny comes out and cuts a promo on him in preparation for their big match this Monday. Look how serious Uncle Danny looks. He's
serious, here, man. Serious.
He edged that star in red. That way, he's serious.
That's right. And he's gonna edge it with Paul Neighbors' blood this Monday night because he promised Paul Neighbors that he's gonna put Paul Neighbors' heads between his legs and put him out of the USWA. He didn't elaborate. He didn't mention a pile driver or anything. He just said, "I'm gonna put your head between my legs and put you out of the USWA."
It's almost like he didn't want to say pile driver because that's an illegal move. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm gonna do something so bad that it's illegal here, but I'm gonna do everything but just tell it to you.
I know Josh liked that, but I did not like the Paul Neighbors stuff at all.
I loved it, man. And dude, did you see the way like he brought the crowd into the promo? And asking them questions, getting them into it. I felt that way at home because, like I said a story a week or two ago about confronting the ref at my very first outlaw show as a kid, like a Confessions. And dude, that's the way I felt about refs at this time. And for him to call out that specific deal with these referees, man, that like spoke words to me, dude. I was like so enthralled with this as a kid. I was like, yeah, kick his ass, Uncle Danny.
I think that, I think being part of the business, been doing it for so long and covering it, it kind of gives you that, I don't know, negativity about these kind of angles. Yeah. You see one, you see them all. But if you was in the moment, I might have said, oh, that's, I'm okay with that. Let's kill the referee. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't know if I ever ran an angle with the referee turning or just not a fan of that angle. So never have been.
Well, I mentioned this on last week's show, and you probably saw it, BT, but I think it bears repeating here based on the point you just made. That's one of the things I love about this show, and the fact that we have 3 of us on here. I tend to be more cynical from all my years where I was in the business in one form or another, and Richard was in it in one form or another, and I feel like Josh gives a little different perspective, as even though he's Danny Davis's uncle, and he definitely had a lot more insight into the business than most people do. He still brings a little more of a fan perspective to it, and he remembers exactly how he felt when he saw it the first time. So I do love that there's times where it's like, me and Richard or me and you are like, oh God, it's the old referee angle here, and Josh is like, I fucking love this. This is great.
I love the idea.
It adds another element to the show.
That Josh can remember anything because I've been listening to P3 Radio for so long, I know this. He can remember almost anything and the year.
Yeah.
I'm always shocked because me and Gene's discussed this before, and I don't know if I meant, but I have just the worst time putting stuff in the years and what order. I asked Gene, I asked you the last episode, what I say, is this the only promotion still going? And you was like, yeah, Portland and everything's gone. But now at this time in 93, I could have never told you the answer to that. I can't tell you, but Josh, man, he can tell you almost when figures came out. That's what scares me when you say, I got Hacksaw Jim Duggan back in 1982, and I'm like, what the fuck? How do you remember that?
I half-ass have a photographic type memory. And
okay.
Whenever I remember it, I can still see myself at the store, like with it in my hands and shit. It's really cool.
I got memories of things.
Mine comes and goes like that. And I used to be so much better with dates. I used to tell you dates of title changes to drop of a hat. And now I'm getting worse and worse about it. Now I have to do some studying before a show. And Doug Gilbert, bless his heart, is always on our podcast, will say, oh, just ask Gene. He knows all the dates. And I'm like, God, quit saying that. Like somebody's going to hit me and make me like a complete idiot one of these days. But so far I've passed every test, but every time he says that, I'm like, oh, don't. And especially when he said it to Jerry Briscoe, I'm like, oh Jesus, no.
Because Jerry really
the 60s, and I'm gonna be like, dude, I'm 47, man. I don't know, but
I'm 58, so I my memory goes just it's going crazy. All right, I gotta take a piss break, y'all.
All right. Well, that being said, we're about to go to a commercial break right now. So as BT takes a break, we too shall take a break. And then on the other side, we're going to hear about today's card and what we were building to with all this. Stick around.
Still to come.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school, but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Those shots to that dude's head during, just getting the slow-mo Brian. I for real think he was really doing some shots in there. Like I think he was taking some liberty.
I mean, I know Brian said it earlier, and I agreed with him about would like to have seen the autograph guy take a bigger beating, but Brian laid him in. The ones he did hit him with, the punches looked good, and those kicks in that slow motion, like, dang, he's stomping that guy's head. That's why I would love to know who he was, where they found him, what relation he was to anybody, because he definitely was comfortable laying it in and without any worry of repercussion on the other side of it. So while Brian's finishing up whatever he's doing, we'll show the card for this Monday night, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with Brian when we get to what we like and don't like about the show and all that. So here, folks, is what we've been building to through this entire episode.
For the action, and then the box office will be open beginning at 10 o'clock Monday morning, so you can pick up advance tickets and won't miss any of this great action coming up. Monday night, the legend with no hair, Tony Falk, is going to be going against Jeff Gaylord in the opening match. Scott Taylor, again, a winner here today. Very good-looking young wrestler. He's going to be teamed with Randy Rocket to go against Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Bo Alexander. Alexander, a wrestler that came in here with one of those attitudes. A special challenge match. Danny Davis told you about it moments ago. Paul Neighbors, the referee, has been put on notice by Danny Davis. The special challenge match, Davis against Paul Neighbors, 1-against-1 in the ring, happens Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum. And I think you fans at home heard how the fans here feel about the action coming up. They're pulling for Danny Davis to put the hurt on Paul Neighbors come Monday night. USWA Tag titles at stake. They won the belts a week ago. New Jack and Homeboy. Well, you can win tag titles. Can you defend them successfully? That will be the question Monday night, as a very upset former team champion, Rex King and Steve Dahl, with Bert Prentice in their corner, will be attempting, and I'm sure they'll be going all out to take back the belts from New Jack and Homeboy. Special added match. Bert Prentice against Lone Eagle. Bert Prentice says, no, I'm not going to wrestle him. He's not going to have anything to do with him. And Lone Eagle puts him in the big pit of mud here. Southern title at stake against Jeff Jarrett's hair. The match finally signed. Remember that Jackie Fargo's the special referee. Brian, it's done. It's a done celebrating with the fireworks come Monday night. Unified title, Owen Hart, the champion, against the King, Jerry Lawler. And then the mud pit match, Miss Texas against Miss Simpson. There'll be a fireworks giveaway, no purchase necessary.
I'm always fascinated by some of the pictures they use for the Monday night card. Like, of all the pictures that existed at the time of Owen Hart, how they ended up with this odd old picture of him standing in front of wood paneling, probably at the Hart house, is just funny to me. But anyway, there was the card. So it's time to ask you guys the questions about how you feel about this week's show. So let's get right into it. Guys, what was your least favorite part of this week's show?
I'm going to have to say the New Jack and Homeboy match versus whoever the hell it was.
Mr. Sergeant O'Reilly.
Sergeant O'Reilly. There we go. Like BT said, Sarge was awesome, taking the moves and stuff, but it was just taxing watching this, because it's not like they're very skilled wrestlers. They're just kind of doing the same old Irish whip clothesline, Irish whip power slam, might do an elbow drop here and there. It's just not a lot of the stuff makes sense, and it was so drawn out. I did debate going and getting something through a drive-through. Like, I got hungry and I was debating on doing something else. So I was totally tuned out of this match. And hopefully, because like I said, I like the look of Mark Freer. He's got like a potential just based off of his looks. And I'm glad he's got a gimmick, but I just don't know that this is for him.
Homeboy.
Chris Frazier. That's my least favorite part of the whole show was Chris Frazier. I mean, I hated it for Scott Taylor. He did a real good job. Like I said, he came off as a good worker even. And I don't know if this is his first year or second year, whatever, but he was young, and Frazier's just horrible. I don't know why they used him as a jobber or even used him at all. So.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Josh here. That match wouldn't have been bad if they would have just gave it kind of like what we used to always say about the Harlem Knights matches. Like, if they'd have gave it their reasonable amount of time that it deserved, it wouldn't have been that bad. But these guys trying to stretch for the amount of time that they did, I guess to account for like the Bert Prentice promos and run throughs with Lone Eagle and all that, it just felt painful to watch. So, and the inverse of that, what was your favorite part of this week's show?
So we had talked about the last few weeks with the King of the Ring tournament and Lawler healing out like even more than he was healing out before up there in WWF, and it really not making sense to the average fan. If you're just kind of reading the magazine or something, you'd be kind of confused. But the promo Lawler came and did, and kind of, just kind of went over the whole thing again and his feelings on it. And Owen Hart coming down and having Bert be his manager and kind of get Papa Shango out of the way, and actually having a Hart, one of the Hart family members having the unified title. That's Lawler's belt. That's the way I felt. That's Lawler's belt. And you have one of them actually get a hold of it, and they're tying everything in and trying to make it make sense to, 10-year-old me. Like, I loved it. It totally put the stamp on the whole question. Well, I'm not sure how they're going to. No, they're tying it in, and it's going to work.
I agree 100% with Josh. That was my favorite part. I believe that Lawler does not like the people in WWE. He proved it by jumping Bret Hart. And I gave 2 hoots about Jerry Lawler's interview. I thought the promo was, like you said, the best so far of this year. And he did look like shit. But other than that, just a great promo. I love the whole thing with showing the clips from Monday night where Owen just beats the hell out of Lawler and all that stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I think instead of star ratings, we might start rating things by how many hoots you would give something on the show each week.
Two hoots.
So if this was actually 1993, would today's TV show would have inspired you to go buy a ticket to Monday night's card at the Coliseum?
Absolutely, man. Our problem earlier in the year was they wouldn't have a lot of matches. They would just have a lot of BS filler. It just feel like, you're sleepwalking through an episode on some of those earlier ones. But it wasn't, there were 2 matches of length and a third match just being for that angle. Yeah. But there was a lot of stuff that happened on this show. It was action packed. It kept me glued to the TV and kind of just there with all of this stuff. And yeah, I want to go see the mud match. I want to go see Bert, probably long, dark,
fat boy,
this short American across the ring. I want to see Uncle Danny beat the hell out of Paul Neighbors. I want to see Owen Hart versus Jerry Lawler. That I want to keep seeing where that saga is going to go and stuff. Yeah, man, I'm definitely showing up.
Agree with Josh again. I'd be there, man. I would take off work and head on down there. I was always a huge Owen Hart fan. I remember before Owen went to the WWE, there was so much buzz about Owen being the best Hart. And everybody talking about he was the best worker of the bunch. And I would have loved to have seen that match. The other stuff, I don't know, but that's what would have got me down there, would have been the main event.
Yeah, I agree. This week we saw the Lawler that I grew up on, the Lawler that made me a fan of the King all through my childhood. And to the point you guys have been making, they did a good job of taking footage of Lawler attacking Bret seemingly unprovoked, and then turned around, put the belt on Owen, which, see, now last week I was puzzled, why the hell would you have Lawler and the referee in the main event and Shango and Owen as semi? But it made sense after you see how it played out, because you had to have Owen be the champion, and you had to have Owen have this opportunity to attack Lawler after being the champion, and it only works if Lawler's match is after his. So I think that all kind of comes together now. It kind of makes sense. And the fact that they let Owen get the kind of heat on him they did, left him laying on the steps upside down and cutting the promo on him and having that picture for Lawler to tear up on TV, even though he's not going to look at it all the way to Monday night. They have convincingly made Lawler the babyface, put Owen in a heel light, and now has Lawler coming for the belt and for revenge. So it puts a lot of stakes on a match that 2 weeks ago would have been cold. It would have been like, all right, this WWF guy's coming in to wrestle Lawler, because that's what the Shango thing always was. It was just, here's this guy from the WWF coming. Oh yeah, he's a champion now. But even after he was champion, there really wasn't any heat put on that feud. There really wasn't any stakes other than Lawler's belt again. Lawler trying to get his belt. But here, there's 1,000 different reasons that you want to see Lawler wrestle Owen, that you want to see.
And Jarrett Christopher. Hopefully, this is the last. This is the last match between those two. Yeah, wink, wink. But yeah, that match had a good build too. So yeah, I would be there. I would be there for that.
Which has been the most consistent feud of the USWA throughout '93. It's been a common thread. The first show we watched in January, it was Jarrett and Christopher over Southern title and hair at stake and everything. And here we are in June, and it's still happening, but yet we're not completely sick of it yet. We're just kind of sick of it being.
Yeah, but USWA, Memphis always did that. You had a feud last forever, and then when the guys left and came back, they would either tag with the guy or they would, it's just.
Well, this was their '90s Lawler and Dundee, basically.
Exactly.
Jarrett and Christopher.
Yeah.
So let's head down to the Mid-South Coliseum, June 28th, 1993. Now, I'm sad to say I scoured the internet. I reached out to people that I knew. No one has an exact figure on the attendance list. Now, we know it wasn't the 2,000 they drew the week before, but from all accounts from guys who were there, it was a very good crowd. It was much larger than what they've been saying. Most people speculate it was probably in the 1,500 range. But we don't have an exact figure. Opening match saw Jeff Gaylord beat Tony Falk by disqualification. Second match, we see Scott Taylor teaming with Randy Rocket, defeating C.W. Bergstrom and Bo Alexander. So,
wow.
Kind of surprising to see Bergstrom and Alexander lose, as they both seem to be
well, it's surprising to see Randy Rocket win. I don't think Randy's ever won, so there you go.
There you go. Match number 3, Nightmare Danny Davis defeated referee Paul Neighbors via countout. So you didn't have to
couldn't even let him get the pin.
Yeah. But I'm sure Paul ran out like a coward, and it made him. It kept his heat, and Danny looked strong, and he lives to heel ref another day, I guess. But fourth match, New Jack and Homeboy, the tag team champs, defeated Rex King and Steve Dahl. Fifth match, Bert Prentice goes to a freaking no contest with Lone Eagle.
Okay.
We can't beat the midget, or the midget can't
put
beat
the midget over. Golly, what's up with that?
Anyhow, then in the sixth match, Jeff Jarrett pins Brian Christopher with special referee Jackie Fargo to save his hair and win the USWA Southern Heavyweight dinner plate. So
yay,
that's good. And then in the main event, for the unified world heavyweight title, the Rocket Owen Hart defeated Jerry Lawler by disqualification to retain the championship for another week. So
I don't know what they're doing, but he's going to try to get 2 or 3 matches out of this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't expect Lawler to come in and be the conquering hero in that one. So I'm not even mad at that one. I don't love the DQ thing, but I guess we'll have to withhold judgment until next week's show when we can see a clip of what actually took place. Maybe Bret showed up or something. I don't know. Last week I couldn't remember whether or not I thought it was too early, but then I remember it being a match with Lawler and Paul Neighbors. I was wondering if last week was going to be Vince McMahon showing up at ringside. Clearly that's not how that played out. That's going to be later on. But again, we've ended some of these shows in recent times. We've ended a lot of these shows in recent times, let's be honest, on kind of a down note of like, Jesus, where are we going from here? Like nothing's happening. I'm very hopeful of the promise of this this Owen and Lawler feud, and the idea that and we know in reality, this is going to lead to Bret Hart coming to town eventually. And I was a big Bret Hart fan. I was a big Lawler fan. I was an Owen fan. So you really can't go wrong with this.
I agree.
Now, before we get out of here, you know, our new game we play, we didn't play our game of how many matches in disqualification, because technically we only had one, because we had, or was it two? I'm sorry, we had two, because the opening match, Jeff Gaylord won by DQ. And then we had Owen get DQ'd against Lawler. But other than that, we had a count out. We had a no contest. But we always like to play now. What's bumming Dave out? Look at Dave. He's sitting there. He's not happy. What's bumming out this week? Well, it's this.
I think that's racist. Y'all, and also I want to talk to y'all. Y'all said something about red man and black man last week. It's Native American and African American.
Afro-American.
You're about to say Afro-headed American. I was going to say that is not any better there, BT.
My bad. Yeah.
I was waiting for someone to say that this was somehow racist. I should have known that Brian Trammell would be the only one to ever say it. But I mean,
extremely
I'm not going to say who designed this picture, but if you're designing this picture and one has to be a pilgrim and one has to be an Indian, I mean, what are you doing, BT? Is it Indian Chief Dave Brown?
No comment. No comment. Patreon. Look.
But a lot of people liked it and shared it, and it was fun. So we appreciate everybody that shared that. And again, we hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. And next week, Josh is going to tag out to his partner Richard, and I don't know if Homeboy BT is going to show back up next week, or if we're going to see. I don't know. Who knows who, but in some shape or form, BT is going to be back with us again, and we're going to see him and Richard on the same screen. Who knows? There could be fireworks. There could be an angle shot. I don't know what's going to happen, but it should be interesting. So before we get out of here, you guys plug your wares. What else do you have going on when you're not here watching old USWA shows with me?
Well, you know, it's no secret we do P3 Radio, me and Richard Lee, and we try to expose, or I say we, I kind of goaded him into it, but we try to expose what piece of shit Boy George is on this next P3 Radio episode. It's the current episode this week. The episode title is Man George. I promise if you listen to it, you will love it.
Hey, by the way, I gave it 3 hoots out of 5 hoots. No, I gave it 3.5 hoots. I did
3.5 hoots.
They talked about Boy George. They kink shamed people. They talked about the current TV show Silk Stockings. Wait, no, it's not current. They talked about dreams. Richard pisses himself. I just want y'all to know that in the bed.
Yes.
They covered news
during
stories.
The show.
They covered news stories from March. Every gay guy talks gay, and they made fun of poor people. I just wrote all that stuff down. I want everyone to go to P3 Radio. One of my favorites, actually is one of my favorite shows to listen to. And then every day on my podcast, stspod.club, we do Shiznit Minute. I want to plug, I have episode 546 has Owen Hart from September 1991. He did a shoot interview with Jeff Osborne of Cassette Wrestling News, and we have the audio of that. Every week we do Rolling Into Mempho podcast, where we review the Memphis Wrestling Show, and they're leading into episode 200. I need to see how that stacks up. I think that's more episodes than Power Pro. Might be more episodes than Corey Macklin's version. But we just reviewed episode 197. And congratulations to Memphis Wrestling and Aaron Roberts. He's a big guy, about 420 pounds. Reminds me of One Man Gang. He just got WWE ID contract. He's part of developmental with they have this new thing called WWE ID, and Memphis Wrestling had Aaron Roberts, their champ. Fun. And we don't do a lot of shows in November, December, but we got WTF. We got supposedly sit down and talk to Dustin about them getting somebody with the WWE, and that's about. And Lance always does his Christmas album review on the record store. That's what we're doing. on stspod.club.
Well, there you go. And by the way, it's not just Corey Macklin's Memphis Wrestling. It's Memphis Wrestling, home of rhythm and blues.
My bad. I know. I'm pretty much sure it's over. I don't know how many episodes. I'd have to go back and look at Power Pro. And me and you talked about this, Gene, because I've looked for a place. Didn't Memphis Wrestling at one time say this is episode 1000?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
During like 96 USWA, I think it was in there.
That horrible ass burgundy ring skirt. That was awful.
Yes, it was. I'll have to go. If someone out there can tell me that, I'd really appreciate it. PM me on one of the sites, or they're just on Facebook. It's Will Brian Trammell. So.
Also this week, if you haven't checked them out yet, check out Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich's Thanksgiving special, the Dangerous Thanksgiving special. This week we talked about some famous Thanksgiving cards that Tommy was on, a few that Doug was on, and
it was awesome. I finished it this morning, so really
going over those cards brought about a lot of interesting stories and thoughts on different people. So I enjoyed that one. I think we'll do 3 hoops. There you go. It doesn't get much better than that. I think we'll do another one of those at Christmas time. So look forward to that. And again, if you want to find that show, you can go to DougGilbertPodcast.com, or you can find it along with this show and many other great wrestling shows at WrestleCopia.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, not just this show, not just Doug and Tommy show, but also P3 Radio, also STSpod.club, and all the different shows that Brian does over there. And it really helps all of us out when you do that. And
here's what I want them to do, Gene. If they want to rate my show, here's what I want them to do. Give me 5-star rating, but I want you to shit on our show. So say the worst thing you could say about me in the comments, but give me 5 stars. There, maybe we'll get some. I really like people doing that. We haven't had a lot of people in 7-something years actually review on iTunes, but it does help you.
So kind of like the way you promote /Barry P3 Radio each time. I
do not. It's one of my favorite
promote
players.
it, but you're not. You're shitting on it as you promote it, which is
I love Josh. Oh wait, was I supposed to say
Richard Lee?
Yeah,
Take that one, Richard Lee.
You famously.
By the way, Josh, Cat Williams does the best Cat Williams imitation I've ever heard. Josh does.
Oh, thank you.
You need to get him to do that for a whole episode. So.
I did it for an extended period of time.
We don't have a whole episode, but if he wants to break one out now, if you want to wrap the show up here as Cat Williams, that would just be amazing.
Let me try to. I kind of got.
You don't have any context. I know it's the worst thing in the world for somebody to explain.
Yeah, it's like
me, but I don't do any good.
Ronald Reagan. Yeah.
Well, if not, you could have our other friend.
Can I do Mimo? Can I do Mimo or
no? You cannot.
Oh man, come on, guys!
You don't want the kind of heat that Richard would bring next week if you close the show with Mimo.
Cat Williams.
Cat Williams, if you will, in public.
Okay. Well, let's see.
I just want everybody to know you need to listen to this podcast specifically, but you need to go and go to stspod.club and USWA podcast.com and go listen to P3 Radio. Those guys are pretty cool. I like them. Not in the Illuminati, just so everybody knows. But yeah, Gene, I love you, man. We'll see you later.
Hey, folks, before we get out of here, I'd just like to take a moment to tell you we appreciate you checking out the podcast. And if you would, do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now, wherever you're watching it. If you'll just take a moment to either subscribe, to rate, and review, let us know what you think. We hope you're liking it. But even if you're not, let us know what you would like to see changed, and we will take that in consideration as we move forward. So we really appreciate any feedback we can get. Also, we just want to say how proud we are to be a part of the WrestleCopia brand of wrestling podcast. Ray Russell brings you something for everyone over at WrestleCopia.com. Check out all the great wrestling podcasts available over there right now. And for all things related to the Retro Wrestling Review podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com and you can find links to everything we have there, our Facebook, our Twitter/X, our TikTok, our Instagram, our merch store. That's right. We've got shirts, we've got hats, we've got phone cases, we've got all kinds of great stuff. And it's all right there at our store. And you can find a link to it at uswapodcast.com. There's a link to the YouTube channel we're associated with, the Retro Wrestling Archive. You can find all that there. And if you have questions for us, if you saw something on the show that you have a question about or a comment about, if you've got some info to answer a question we have, or you got a question you want us to read on the air, if you want to work out an ad swap, if you want to have any kind of communication with us, you can go and send an email to uswapodcast@outlook.com, and I will get back to you just as quickly as humanly possible. And if you're a fan of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, and if you've heard it, I know you are, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for all things related to Doug's podcast. You can find links to our Facebook page for the show, our Twitter. You can find links to Doug's social media, his Twitter, his Facebook. All that's available there, plus a link to the YouTube channel. And if you have a question for Doug you would like for me to ask him on the air, you can send that question to DougGilbertPodcast@outlook.com, and we will get it added, and it will get answered in a future episode just as quickly as we can work it in. So we appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you here next week for more